Good to have you. We are 4 minutes late and we're going to keep moving. Good to have everybody here and opening up. Yes.
Lawmakers, so I'm probably have to leave early. Just
Your own lawmakers. Okay.
So you're choosing lawmakers over chair.
well, I
Karen.
didn't know that we were going to meet so long.
Okay. Okay. Well, we'll keep it moving from that standpoint. If you wish to talk, our public sign-up sheet is down front, if you would do that. Now I'm going to call the meeting to order, and I have two parts. Last time I said I had a gavel and a mallet. So they brought me a rubber mallet. So I have a rubber mallet as well as a gavel. So either way, I'm covered. We'll bring us in. All right. Our meeting order is this is the Government Oversight Committee, and we are meeting today. And if I could, Senator Sam Watson, could you open us in a word of prayer, please, sir? You are number 12.
Right.
Thank you, sir.
Let's pray. Dear Father, we just thank you for this day. We thank you for all your many blessings, and we just thank you for this great state that we live in, and just ask and pray that you'll lead and guide us in this meeting, and give us wisdom, and just be with our families while we're away, and watch over them, and keep them safe, and just bring us all back tomorrow, and give us a good rest of the week here. In your name we pray. Amen.
If you will, just for committee members, if we will, any questions or anything that we have to do can be with the bill, has to do with the bill that we're dealing with. We've got 4 bills on the docket today. SB 341, SB 90, which will be a hearing only, SB 381, which is my bill, and then HB 269, which is Representative Blackman. And as I understand, Senator Walker, you're going to be handling that one. Is that correct? Very good. It will please me well. I have a mallet either way. All right. Senator Kirkpatrick's SB 341. You will explain this to us. Am I correct? Thank you. We appreciate you being here. Let's see.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, committee. This bill is going to look very familiar to you guys because we overwhelmingly passed it last year. And it's back this year after a veto that was due to an amendment that was unrelated to the part of the bill that I'm bringing you today. And I call this bill the repeal bill. And what it does is it streamlines and simplifies our code and repeals a number of inactive boards and commissions that are still in our code. And it renames a few committees. In addition, it eliminates pre-filing legislation and it modifies the structure of the Legislative Services Committee. So I'd be happy to briefly walk through the sections, Mr. Chair, if that would be helpful.
If you would like to do that.
Okay, I'm not going to go line by line. I'm just going
Appreciate
to
that.
talk about what each section does.
Okay.
Section 1 and 2 are updating committee names to Senate committees. Section 3 is does away with the Georgia Education Authority for Schools, which is not operational per the Department of Education. Section 4 does away with pre-filing legislation, and this was added on the House side last year. But after talking to the Secretary of the Senate's office and the Clerk of the House office, they spend a massive amount of time and work dealing with pre-filed legislation, which really doesn't help anybody because you've got to file it when the session starts in order to get a bill number and move the bill forward. Section 5 changes the structure of the Legislative Services Committee. This was not in the bill last year, but I've been working with the Pro Tem's office on this, and James Beal is here if there are any questions about that. But basically what it does is it rotates the chairmanship of that committee between the House and the Senate. Previously, it was the House, and now it's going to go back and forth. And that will strengthen the collaboration between the two chambers. And additionally, the section raises the amount that can be authorized by the Legislative Fiscal Office for legal services from $5,000 to $12,000. That number has not changed in a long time. And meanwhile, legal services have gotten more and more expensive. And this will ease the administrative burden of having to seek approval that delays payment for these types of legal bills. So the leadership of both chambers has worked on this section for about the last year, and they're now in agreement. Section 6 does away with the Georgia Rail Passenger Authority Overview Committee, which is not operational. Section 7 removes the Office of Women's Health, which has not met in a long time and was abolished by, the reporting was abolished by statute by Senate Bill 372 in 2020. And it also removes the Kidney Disease Advisory Committee, which was abolished by statute in 2020. Section 8 repeals the Partnership for Public Facilities. No one really knows what this one is, and it's not operating. Section 9 repeals the World War I Centennial Commission, which is over and has finished their work.
That's the
Sec-
war of the commission.
The war's over and the commission is
Okay,
over.
thank you.
Thank you.
Just wanted to certify that.
Section 10 repeals the State Personnel Oversight Commission. And again, no one's been able to find this one. Section 11 repeals the Small Business Assistance Advisory Council, which is not operating. Section 12 repeals the Commission on Regional Planning, which is not operating. Section 13 repeals the Committee on Preservation of the State Capitol, which is not operating. And Section 14 renames a Senate committee. I appreciate the help with Legislative Council in identifying and cleaning up these parts of our law, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I would just ask you the question. This rotation is the Committee on Assignments, am I correct? Is that right?
No, it's the Legislative Services Committee.
Legislative Services.
Nothing changes about the
Do-
committee.
Does the House have anything to say about us rotating this? Or are they in agreement on the rotational process?
They were in agreement,
Okay.
my understanding.
Yes.
Yes, okay. I was just curious as far as that. Okay, very good, very good. Good job. Thank you. Looks like you are reducing the size of government, at least by name. Am I correct?
That's the whole point, is to simplify and streamline things in our government that are not working anymore.
Very good, very good. And glad to know that World War I is over too. Okay, that makes me feel better. All right.
There may be more, but this was all I could find.
Okay, good job as far as that. Any questions from the committee on this? Let's see. Senator Roberts?
Number 11, yeah.
Yeah, got you, sir.
Chairman, Chair Kirkpatrick, I think it's Part 8, Partnership for Public Facilities and Infrastructure Act Guidelines Committee. That's the one, I think you said you weren't quite sure.
Nobody could find that one.
Okay, but it does say that this bill amends Code Section 3691-1112 to require a local government to adopt its own guidelines instead of allowing a local government to either adopt its own policy or the model guidelines from the Partnership for Public Facilities and Infrastructure Act. So, when it comes to at post 9/11, public infrastructure became an extremely important aspect of homeland security in local communities. So I'm assuming in my local community, we did adopt our own guidelines for dealing with critical infrastructure, public infrastructure protection. So I'm assuming this just falls back to allow each community to do their own thing, whether this Partnership for Public Facilities and Infrastructure Act ever met or not. Was that the way you would interpret that?
That's exactly how I interpret it.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that.
Whoops, anyone else? Okay. What's the pleasure of the committee? Senator Robertson?
Motion to pass.
Awesome, do pass. Thank you, sir. Do we have a second? Second, Senator Sam Watson. All right. Any further discussion? Anybody? None? All in favor, raise your hand. Looks unanimous. You look like you're ready to go. Go
Thank you,
rules.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Ms. Kay. All right. Senator Walker, we are from Perry, Georgia. We are glad to have you. We had set a hearing only on this. Am I correct? Is that our understanding?
Yes, sir, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman.
And then you are also going to do Representative Blackman's bill as well. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'll let you do both of those. So I will let you start with SB 390 and that bill, the LC number on it. Let me get there. Is LC 460740. Is that correct?
That's what I have. Yes, sir.
Okie dokie. The floor is yours.
All right. Thank you,
sir.
Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee. I want to start by giving you an experience I had in my district, in fact, in the county in which I live, Houston County. The library is really across the street from my insurance office, and we're real proud of our library system in Houston County. It's been a real asset to the community. And my grandson has already made several trips to the library with his grandmother and enjoying that. But the local library applied for a grant through the American Library Association, and they were awarded the grant. It was a $20,000 grant for media, and the stipulations of the grant were that the material that they could purchase with the grant, probably from the American Library Association, had to be LGBTQ material or diverse DEI type material. And a good bit of it was children material. This, of course, caused some outrage by some members of the local library board when they fully understood the grant and after it had already been done. And I went so I was contacted by some citizens, and I went and met with the Houston County Library Board at their regular meeting and expressed my concern and felt like that was not a reflection of the morals and values of our community and was not appropriate, especially in the children's section. I thought I would be met with kind of a apology, or, oh, we didn't mean to do this, or we won't do this again, or yes, we'll segregate this material, or that, we should have thought through this. But instead, it was really it was kind of met with a sort of defiance, and that we need more diversity in our library materials and that kind of thing. So that got me to looking at the American Library Association and what they were sort of about. And I've been dismayed to learn that they seem to be a very radical left-leaning organization. It ought to be an apolitical organization, but they seem to have a very determined and agenda to try to really indoctrinate our librarians and push this kind of material into our library system, and ultimately, I guess, and influence our children and indoctrinate our children. So that's why I bring the legislation to you today. The purpose of SB 390 is to prevent any taxpayer or privately donated funds from going to the American Library Association from any governmental entity, to prohibit the ALA from holding a privileged status as the sole recognized accreditor for advanced degrees that fulfill state education requirements for the position of librarian or library director, and to dissolve the State Board for Certification of Librarians, effectively returning the responsibility for the selection and certification of librarians and library directors to the local communities. Section 1 of the bill just outlines findings establishing the current state of affairs leading to the bill, the nature of the American Library Association and their partisan bent, encouraging the Georgia Library Association to disaffiliate from the ALA, and asserting that state certification has not benefited public libraries, but rather has created a bureaucratic system that's been weaponized as a dissemination of a radical ideology which does not reflect the majority of our state and therefore should be repealed. Section 2 stipulates that no public funds or gifts of funds shall be used by the Board of Regents. As you know, the libraries are housed under the Board of Regents. So it stipulates the Board of Regents wouldn't fund the American Library Association or any of its affiliates. Section 3 stipulates that local municipalities would not send taxpayer dollars to the American Library Association or its affiliates. And Section 4 prevents any public funds from paying membership dues to the American Library Association. Section 5 eliminates the requirement for certification by the State Board for the certification of libraries to act as director of a public library system. Section 6 repeals the code section requiring that all individuals holding the position of librarian in a public library system be certified by the State Board for the certification of librarians. Section 7 prohibits any governmental entity from using any taxpayer funding or privately donated funds or services provided by the ALA or its affiliates. Section 8 repeals the code section currently enumerating the powers, duties, and responsibilities of the State Board for the certification of libraries. And Section 9 prohibits the Department of Administrative Services from receiving any bid or proposal from the ALA or its affiliates. It's got an effective date, if it were to pass as written, of July 1, 2025. And we are not the only, so as I talk with my colleagues, apparently this type grant and this type of activity is going on in many counties throughout our state. Other senators have heard from constituents about this and their concern. Also, I want to point out that Georgia would not be an outlier in leaving the ALA. Other states that have done it are Texas, Missouri, Montana, Alabama, Wyoming, and South Carolina. And I think other states are also looking at disaffiliating with the American Library Association. Like a lot of things we do here, the way the bill is written, Mr. Chairman, there would be some unintended consequences especially with regard to Valdosta State University. They are our primary university for training librarians, and they have a Master's of Library Science degree that's very popular. I think maybe they have 400 students in that. I believe it's an online program. And they get their accreditation through the American Library Association. My intent, of course, is not to hurt Valdosta State University. My intent is not to diminish or reduce the level of professionalism or education level of our current status of our librarians. So I do think the bill could, I need to accommodate, especially Valdosta State, somehow or another. We need to find another accrediting agency if we can. So far, apparently, ALA has a monopoly on that. But with these other states pulling out, I feel sure there's going to be another organization that's going to step up and offer an accreditation for library education programs. But that's something I would like to work on. I'm not one to jump on social issues. Typically, I don't usually lead the charge on social issues, but this has just kind of flown in my face and just kind of upset me that I feel like this is kind of being forced on our citizens and forced on our children and kind of shoved down our throat. And I didn't hear myself, but I've read about the current president of the American Library Association describes herself as a Marxist lesbian. And there's been a lot of statements issued from that organization that are disturbing to me. And so that's why I'm here with the bill. I am glad that appreciate you letting me have a hearing, because I do want to hear from the people that oppose this bill and why they oppose it. And I hope we can maybe make some improvements, especially surrounding Valdosta State and their program.
Thank you for bringing this. 'Cause what you're saying, the ALA grant basically was bringing material in that would probably violate your local community's obscenity laws. Is that correct?
I didn't see any of the material, but to me, at some point, a young person does need to be educated on LGBTQ and sexuality and all of that. But I think it's up to the parents what the appropriate age is to have that conversation. And I don't want my wife as a grandmother to have a 5-year-old or 6-year-old, looking at this kind of material that could be considered pornographic by some people and, start to ask these questions. And, I just think it's just too much at some point. I'm pretty tolerant individual, but this has just gone too far.
Let me ask one other question, then we've got some other questions for you as far as what's going on. The chancellor's office that's over Valdosta State, have you had any connections with them or conversations with them about this because of their overview of the colleges?
Yes, sir. I've met with the chancellor on this and I talked to him on the phone again this morning. They, I think, are looking at maybe some language that would improve the bill to where it would not be a detriment to the VSU program, library program,
Okay.
for educating librarians.
Very good. Okay. Thank you. We've got several questions. Senator Moore, you've got a question on this bill. There.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Senator Walker. I think this is probably one of the best pieces of legislation I've seen come through this committee. I think it's a wonderful piece. People in Northwest Georgia are mighty supportive. I'm a bit confused about Valdosta State and why that tends to be a holdup. I mean, doesn't Valdosta State as an institution, I mean, it's a prestigious institution. Why do we need the American Library Association's involvement? I mean, this bill gets rid of that.
Thank you, Senator. So I'm not an educator. I have served on a school board before, and all of our school systems, whether they're your local public school or your private schools or your colleges and universities, they all want an accreditation and seek accreditation so that it gives transfer. One advantage for the students is it gives transferability of the credit hours. So if you're wanting to transfer from one accredited school to another, because of that accreditation, they'll recognize the hours you have earned at that previous school. That's one of the big reasons you want accreditation.
Do you know if Valdosta State's the only institution that we have that is accredited by the ALA?
I do not know that for sure. I think they're the primary school in the USG system that teaches library sciences, but I do believe that they are here today, and you will be able to ask them that about that. They're more knowledgeable about that than me.
Okay, thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Chairman Walker. Okay, just a couple questions. Can we go back to the genesis story of the legislation? So you mentioned that you had some locals upset about something in your local library system.
Correct.
And your library system told you that your locals did not see eye to eye with what you were saying, it sounds like.
I would say my library director did not see eye to eye with what I'm saying. I would say that on the board, several members of the board were kind of outraged about it. And some were they didn't really say anything. So I don't really know how they felt. I imagine some thought it was fine.
So that was not something like put down to your Perry community by the ALA.
My local, to your point, and in all fairness, my local library board maybe they didn't fully understand or whatever, but the library director applied for the grant knowing what she was applying for.
Could
So
you-
she wasn't forced, excuse me, she wasn't forced to apply for the grant.
So I'm just interested in that because we're talking about this national organization that's, supposedly doing all this bad stuff. And what I'm partially hearing is your locals were operating in a way that you didn't really like, versus this whole narrative of a national board, and even getting into how local libraries might operate. So I just want to note that as what I view as a little bit of an inconsistency. But secondly, I would be curious if you don't mind sharing the information related to the grant and what it was, and then the language that was being objected to. I sure would like to see that, because as it being the genesis of this, I think it's relevant. And I'd be curious to see how I feel about what these requirements were. And whether they were true requirements. I would like to see that if you don't
I'll
mind
see if
sharing.
I can get that to you.
Great. And,
So
oh, yeah.
can I
go ahead, yeah.
respond to that, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
The ALA, because they are in charge of the accreditation and seem to have sole control over that. And also they provide the continuing education hours for our librarians. I feel like they should be apolitical. They should not wade into these type of controversial areas with public tax dollars funding them. And I just resent I feel like they've got such a stranglehold over the librarians and can kind of brainwash them or indoctrinate them because they're providing the accreditation. They're saying what the curriculum should look like, et cetera. They're the ones teaching the continuing ed hours, and approving, to be a librarian, you've got to be certified. I just think they've got a enormous amount of influence over our librarians and our libraries.
Thank you for that. I do have two more if I can ask them. So the first one is, are you aware of when the tenure of the current president ends?
I'm told they have 1-year terms. So I think her tenure ends at the end of June. But she's member elected. And I just question what kind of organization would elect somebody that is a self-described Marxist lesbian and says some of the things she says.
Well, I'll refrain from making comparisons to what some people on the right say, okay, since we're talking about your bill. But my last question is, are you aware of
Thank you, Senator.
yeah, I mean, a lot we could go to. Are you aware that that there's a lot of data, like dozens and dozens of studies demonstrating that when there's like a strong library program and certification, it really it can move student achievement significantly. And you're dissolving the certification of librarians. I just don't know that the problem you're identifying, especially with the 1-year term or what have you, merits upending a system that's been shown to really improve student results. And there are a lot of dedicated professionals. I guess we're getting into commentary, but you yourself mentioned there was not unanimity of opinion in your local area. So I would just not want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Thank you.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chairman, may I?
Senator Walker,
respond?
go ahead. Answer that.
Respectfully, Senator, again, as I said in my remarks, I'm not trying to lower the standard for education of librarians, but I do question the benefit or purpose or value of a state board. If somebody has a bachelor's degree in library sciences or a master's degree in library sciences, why in the world, what business does the state have in requiring them to pay the state to license them? I would think a college degree would be sufficient.
Okay.
Certainly
Thank-
for the Bar Association and all these other professionals.
All right, let's keep us moving. Senator Robertson, your Number 11, correct,
Yes,
sir?
sir. Yes, sir.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chairman Walker, I'll start by saying your hair looks good.
Yes.
The cosmetologists have not caught you yet.
They're coming.
They are. Cosmetologists and the librarians are coming for you. How familiar are you with the ALA?
I'm not super familiar, Mr. Whip, but I know a lot more about it than I did 6 months ago.
Yeah, I was surprised to find out that they were founded on my birthday in 1876.
Is that old?
A few years before I was born, but and to Senator Parrott's point, I think I absolutely believes and I think you believe. I remember being in the third grade and every day we would go to the library and I'd put on the Peter, Paul and Mary album and the giant headphones and find a favorite book and sit there and read for the hour that we were in the library. And it made me a much better student, kept me out of the principal's office 50% of the time, and made me a better reader and writer. And so I've never lost the value of the library. But the libraries we're talking about, are these private libraries or these public libraries?
These are public.
How is the library across the street from your house funded? The primary funding?
The county builds the buildings and maintains the buildings, is my understanding, and the state provides additional funding.
Okay.
Tax dollars.
The main
Tax for it.
the main library in Columbus, Georgia falls under the purview of the Muskogee County school system. Does the library across your street, does it fall under the school system or do you know
The county,
the county?
Houston County, yes, sir.
Okay. And the grant and Senator Parrott, and I think is as devastated as she's going to be by this, we're thinking along the same lines as far as the grant, because these grants are very specific. And when you apply for these grants, they tell you what the requirements are. And in many cases, these grants are crafted to fulfill certain things within the library. So would it be fair to assume that when the library director sat down and started filling out this grant, that he or she knew what they would be required to spend that funding on if they were lucky enough to be awarded the grant?
That's my understanding, is she knew, yes, sir.
Yeah. And I
And
know,
I met with her and she did not act like she didn't know. I mean, she acknowledged thought that that's what they needed, that kind of materials.
well, I know since the early 1970s, the ALA has been running something that is currently called the Rainbow Roundtable that has a very primary focus on alternative lifestyle type publications. And to be perfectly clear, I've got 1,800 books in my house, and some that will cause your eyelashes to fall out if you open them and start to read them, because I believe that as an adult, I need to be up on everything, and some of them are scary. I wouldn't want my 5-year-old daughter to open them, but that's my personal library at home. It's not paid with taxpayer dollars. It's there and it's mine, and I could do with it as I please. And I think the concern that I see in this is, even though this president, Mr. Chairman, if you'll bear with me for a quick second, even though her term is short, I think what we've seen is the pattern. And my profession and your profession, and correct me if I'm wrong, there are certain certifications and certain organizations that we can become a part of that add what appears to be esteem or certain requirements to make us be able to expand within our profession. But I've always been concerned that certain organizations attempt to hold certain professions hostage as being the only organization that carries that kind of weight. And I'm deeply concerned that we have a university that has a program that is the only way. And I have a family member that works in a large public library, somebody very close to me. But the fact that for her to advance in her career, she has to go to VSU and take a program that is sponsored by a single organization, that she has no choice but to go anywhere else. And while I agree with what you're saying with the chancellor, is that we work on the legislation to make it more accommodating. I do not think that we, as the men and women responsible to the taxpayer, should be held hostage by any organization that is a nonprofit organization that has no tie whatsoever to managing how we run our states, to let them dictate what happens. So as you go through and pull this information out as we move forward, I hope you would drill down into this so we can find out if there are other organizations that offer the same type of certification or support.
Thank you, Senator. That's my intention.
All right, Senator Merritt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Number two.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Walker.
Hey, Senator.
Hey, you do nice time and nice hair. So Mr. Chairman, I'm going to express some of the concerns that have been said here, briefly. How I understand it, the ALA is the, sole universally, the ALA accredited MLIS is the sole universally recognized degree for professional librarians, universally. And my concern is, as been said before, we want to restructure and dismantle something that is universally recognized right now, but we don't have a method of doing that. We just want to put the bill out or pass the bill without building a different accreditation or knowing what that is. That's correct? We don't have anybody else to fill this accreditation that is universally recognized right now.
I have not identified another organization at this point
Okay.
that does the accreditation. I'm told there's one that's been started. And I think there's other ways. I think the Georgia Library Association, for example, could disaffiliate with ALA and accredit and start an accreditation program. I think possibly SACS, is another accrediting organization that might be able to step in, but I think there'll be more testimony from others that are more knowledgeable about it than me, about what's going on in the accreditation area. There are, as I mentioned, 5 or 6 other states that have decided to pull out and defund, so to speak,
Mhm.
the ALA. And so there's going to be a void there that's going to have to be filled, and I'm sure some organization will fill that.
And if I may, so yeah, and I to be practical, I would like to see what the replacements would be if we yank the accreditation under the ALA right now. So that's a concern. Like, instead of us pulling the plug now, we don't really have anything to fall on. I'd rather us already know this will be the new accreditation. We know who they are. That's just a comment in my comment on that. The other thing, I want to go back to the context of why you introduced the bill. And your concern was certain books being in the library. Is that correct?
And primarily I'm concerned in the children's section.
Okay.
I'm not for banning books. I do think there's a place for more mature material.
Okay.
In the adult section of the library. A lot of this, I understand, was going to be online.
Okay.
And I'm not sure how that's controlled. Apparently they have a filter system and this kind of thing. So, I don't know. But
And that's my next question. Well, 2 things. Well, a couple of things. It is up to parents, for the most part, to decide what is and is not acceptable for their children to read. Is that correct?
that's sort of my point.
Okay. So it is also the parent's job to filter out what's not appropriate and what is. Correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't think, to me, public funds should not go to buy children material that is pornographic or has an adult content, mature content.
Okay. And I guess my concern, we're now at a time where literacy and knowledge, the library system has always been the keeper in the housing of literacy and knowledge. And I kind of see some free speech, maybe problems with that. I mean, it is, at the end of the day, it is up to parents to decide. And right now we have the internet. Obscenity can be pulled up on the internet very quickly. And a lot of parents don't really have control over that piece of it. So I guess I'm, you know, just trying to see how this bill resolves what your concern was, as far as what children are seeing and what parents are allowing.
Respectfully, Senator, so when I was growing up, the Hardy Boys series was very popular. I read all the Hardy Boys. I mean, there's all kind of great material for children to read and to improve literacy and to learn the love of reading. And I just feel like this is a intentional effort to indoctrinate our kids by bribing or, you know, funding this type of material in the children's section. I just think it's wrong.
But we have established that it's really up to the parents to decide what is seen.
But the librarian my local librarian, and she's, I mean, I don't want to throw her under the bus anymore. And I already have, because she's done a lot of really good things. But she did not want to label the material. She did not, I mean, how do parents even know?
Okay.
You know,
Okay.
And that might be a different conversation with her process, rather than we need a bill to change the accreditation. I guess, was there an attempt to say, hey, can we put this in a different section or maybe label this differently? If,
there was a discussion and she did not
Okay.
like that.
okay.
Let's-
Thank you, Mr.
let's-
Chairman.
Let's do this. We've got 4 people to speak against this, and I don't want to order dinner tonight. Is that all right with y'all? And since this is a hearing only, let's do this. We're going to limit each of the 4 people to 3 minutes as far as that portion. And then Senator Walker, if you want to stand by just in case, well, I would say this, since this is a hearing only, if you're okay, we can release you to go, catch and release from that standpoint.
Well, you want me to talk on?
But you may want to listen to what's going on. What's that? Excuse me. Yeah, we got another bill. Let me let you back off and let's take the people that are here,
Thank you, Chairman.
if we can do that.
And I want to hear what's said. I mean, that's how this process works.
We have, yep.
And that's the benefit of, you know, the conversation. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. I'm excited. We have David, and if I don't mess up his name, Salaka from Valdosta State. I hope I didn't mess that up. I'm glad you're here though, since your school is being named and talked about, and we actually have someone really here. I got to ask, I don't know this, and this is terrible. What's the mascot for Valdosta State?
We are the Blazers.
The Blazers. Okay. Is that like a coat blazer or a fire or what?
It is the mascot itself is actually almost like a matchstick with a on fire.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Wow. Okay. What now? He used to be a dragon. Okay.
At one point, he was a dog. That's correct.
Thank you for being here, and we will let you speak. We're holding out to 3 minutes if we can, and I know that's if you drove from Valdosta, you drove from a
did.
long way, but
It was 3 minutes and 34 seconds this afternoon when I went through it. Is that all right?
is that okay? Okay, you drove from Valdosta to here in 3 minutes. Okay, that's okay. Okay, we'll give you the 34 seconds. So
Thank you,
thank you
sir.
for being here. We appreciate it, sir.
All right. Well, good afternoon, Chairman Harmon and members of the Senate Government Oversight Committee. My name is David Slykeis, and there you go. And I am the Dean of the James L. and Dorothy H. Dewar College of Education and Human Services at Valdosta State University. I really appreciate the opportunity to provide you with information on the Masters of Library and Information Sciences degree at Valdosta State. VSU's MLIS program has grown from 292 students in the fall of 2018 to 400 students in the spring of 2024. This 27% growth in 5 years has been due to the following factors: our outstanding faculty, the degree program is fully online and asynchronous, tailored to working adults, its affordability, and the accreditation, which allows for graduates to attain jobs in their career field. This is a very competitive program with an excellent national reputation. The growth over the last 5 years has been achieved while maintaining the highest standards for admission. Accreditation is often the deciding factor for many of our students. It assures VSU graduates will be prepared to meet the ever-changing needs of the public library, including a heavy dose of information technology. Graduates will understand the principles of organization, research, accessibility, best practices, and key performance indicators of successful libraries. MLIS accreditation, like all other specialty accreditation, such as social work, counseling, speech language pathology, etc., assures the quality of the educational program. The majority of professional positions in publicly funded public libraries, public and private university libraries, and public and private special collections libraries require a master's degree from an accredited MLIS program as a condition of employment. MLIS graduates who hold their degree from an accredited graduate program are educated according to a set of professionally agreed upon standards intended to protect the public interest. MLIS accreditation is focused on maintaining the quality of the curriculum. It indicates the program's curriculum and student support services have undergone a self-evaluation process and have been reviewed by their peers. Graduating from an accredited program provides greater flexibility in the types of libraries and range of jobs that graduates can apply for. Almost all library employers in the US and Canada require an accredited degree for most professional library positions. Many states require certification of their librarians, and the primary credential for certification is an MLIS degree from an accredited academic program. The Masters of Library and Information Sciences degree program at Valdosta State University is the only graduate library studies program in Georgia. To maintain accreditation, we are required to pay a minimal annual fee. Losing accreditation would eliminate Valdosta State as a viable MLIS degree program for most students. The loss of the ability to remain accredited would devastate a program that is bringing in over $3.5 million in tuition revenue to Valdosta State annually. Until another accrediting body can be found or formed, I respectfully ask the bill sponsor and committee for consideration to be able to use privately donated funds to continue our accreditation, at least through our currently approved cycle of 2028. Our faculty have built a program that serves the residents of Georgia and has an outstanding national reputation. These faculty are Georgia residents with Georgia values who have built a program that is able to meet the needs of their students by adhering to the accreditation requirements while staying true to who they are and where they are from. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. We've got a couple of questions, and then I'll just ask one question up front. ALA has been brought up multiple times as far as that, and you, I'm sure, are familiar with them. Do you have a personal opinion that you would voice on the validity and the operation and the necessity for ALA, if you don't mind, sir?
I can voice an opinion on the need for the accreditation. All right. So I would like as much as possible to separate the politics and the advocacy and activism of ALA versus the accreditation process.
Okay.
So I think the accreditation process that we go through is a valid process. It has a set of standards that are agreed to by members, put together by members both from within ALA and outside of ALA. So they have a committee of experts that come together and form these standards. And those are the program standards that we meet.
The standards are one thing. The
Correct.
philosophy is another. Am I correct?
Correct.
Okay. That's what I wanted to hear, just how I wanted to hear that. We've got a couple of questions. We'll keep those as quickly as we can because our time. Senator Robertson, you were first.
Yes, sir. Thank
Number
you.
11, please, sir.
Thank you. Doctor, and I'm not going to butcher your last name.
No worries.
3.5 million.
Correct.
Do you know what percentage of that is Hope?
No, I do not.
Do you think possibly that quite a few of your students would be covered by Hope scholarships and Zell Miller scholarships and things of that nature, or
These are graduate students only.
Correct.
So that
any state money? Do you think is the 3.5?
I honestly, I did not look into that
Okay.
at all. I'm sorry.
Okay. what's the undergrad degree primarily?
We
in
do
these
not have, we
programs?
do not have an undergraduate degree.
Well, do you know what the primary undergrad degree is that when individuals enter into your program that they're carrying at the time?
I do not, sir.
Okay, so it could be almost anything.
They have a
then.
wide variety of backgrounds, correct?
Okay, and ALA is the certification or accreditation body that y'all currently use?
That is correct.
Okay, and what you answered to the chair briefly, and not a question if you care to answer or if you care to ponder, do you really believe that an organization that has such a clear mission statement as what I have found in my brief time searching the ALA can draw a bright line that one side of their philosophy does not splash into the other side of the curriculum that they create and the standards that they put out to hold individuals to a certain level? Because if we look around the state and you threw a lot of associations and type of certifications. And I mentioned that the chair and I both in our professions we have to be members of certain accredited organizations to do it. But the accreditation that we're looking at here, this is a very unique accreditation that touches the lives of every Georgian that uses public libraries. And I promise you, it's one of my favorite places to go with my daughter. Is the library. And so do you feel that there are ways that we can have a bright line in between the two, the job side of it and the thought side of it?
Sure, I understand your concern.
Yeah.
So one of the processes of accreditation is typically the accrediting team. The people who do that are typically not from the organization, maybe a single person from the organization, but they're usually members from other universities. And so it's really an evaluation by your peers. And so that it does sort of put a little bit of delineation between the accreditation process and the organization itself.
But aren't those accreditors, aren't they trained by the accrediting organization?
Sure. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Senator Watson, I believe you next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Two quick questions. How many of the students that are taking this program are Georgia students? Do you have an idea?
Approximately right around 100 of the 400.
Okay. And then the second question, the author of the bill mentioned some other states that were not using the ALA. Do you know what they're using to accredit their librarians?
I
in
do
other
not.
states?
I do not. As far as the Senator Walker said, as far as I know, this is the only accredited embodied right now.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Senator Moore, if
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, so help me understand why the ALA has so much power and accreditation, because in order to be a librarian in the state, you just have to have a master's degree in librarian sciences. That's what MLS is, right?
Master's in Library Information Sciences, correct.
Okay, so you're an accredited institution, a prestigious institution. Why doesn't that degree hold enough weight to be a librarian? Why does the ALA have to hold us hostage? Because ultimately that accreditation is for the public benefit, right? And I don't feel like librarians in my district having that certification of the ALA, I don't think that's to the public benefit. So why can't a master's degree hold its own weight?
The master's degree does hold its own weight and brings a lot of value on its own. The problem is the job market. So when they go out, when graduates, even with a degree, go out and look for positions, oftentimes, and I would say the majority of the times for professional library positions, it is labeled as a stipulation of the job must have a degree from an accredited university, an ALA in this case, accredited university.
But to my understanding, this legislation for the state of Georgia, that will no longer be a necessity.
In the state of Georgia.
And ultimately our state institutions are for Georgia citizens. So I'm not, if somebody lives in Florida or another state, they can go pick another college. But I mean, for the benefit of Georgia citizens and our public interest, I don't want that ALA holding on holding
Right.
us hostage,
So-
as the senator said.
So the other advantage of an accredited program, besides what Senator Walker said, is that it provides consistency across all institutions that are doing this program, so that if the University of Georgia Libraries wanted to hire a head librarian and they look for someone from an accredited university, they would know sort of exactly what curriculum was covered. And so what is part of the MLIS program then is consistent across all these. So it's not Valdosta State's decision of what we think would make an excellent library and information sciences degree, but a nationally recognized that everyone agrees to, that so when these people are hired, they know exactly what they are getting.
So essentially it's an occupational license to be a librarian. And instead of we as a Senate body or as a state institution, we're relying on this nonprofit organization to establish how to obtain that occupational license.
For us, it is added value to the degree for our graduates.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
One question on the
Yes, sir.
ALA certification. What's the cost of that? What does it cost
Yeah.
to have an ALA certification?
So it only costs us $1,100 per year.
$1,100 per year.
Correct.
Okay.
So they do it a little bit different. They have an annual fee for accreditation. Some accrediting bodies will charge you sort of a large
Yeah.
lump sum when you go through accreditation.
Okay.
ALA just happens to do a relatively small fee every year.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate you coming
You
and
bet.
speaking for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have Julie Walker, I believe, with Georgia Public Library Services is what I'm told. She didn't drive quite as far or quite as fast, but come right on. Tell us who you are and where we know what you are, where you are, but good to
will.
have you with us.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and Senators. I'm happy to be here this afternoon. I am Julie Walker. I'm the State Librarian and the Vice Chancellor for Libraries and Archives in the University System of Georgia. And the agency that works with the public libraries is called the Georgia Public Library Service. We are a unit of the university system. And I know a lot of you are used to seeing me here representing the state's libraries. I do that a lot. And you've probably heard me a lot of times say that they are doing an outstanding job. We have wonderful public libraries here in Georgia, and I'm very proud to represent them. And I'm really here to speak for them today. Georgians are facing more and more complex information decisions every day, from locating trustworthy information to understanding artificial intelligence to routine assistance with online applications, schooling, and technology. Our libraries serve the information needs of millions of Georgians every day. Our role in building early literacy is vital to the success of the efforts of the newly formed Council on Literacy. Georgia's libraries are completely independent in their governance, finance, and outlook from the American Library Association. We acknowledge and understand concerns with the American Library Association. Many library professionals in Georgia don't agree with their recent statements and positions. My agency, the Georgia Public Library Service, is not a member of ALA. Librarians have the responsibility to operate their libraries based on local determination of what best serves the communities they know and love. They are deeply connected with their communities. Our public libraries are governed by local boards of trustees made up of wonderful, dedicated community members appointed by the local government officials who fund those libraries. Collection decisions are made at the local level. Selection of materials is not influenced by the American Library Association, the Georgia Library Association, or the Georgia Public Library Service. Our libraries also each have long-standing processes for the reconsideration of materials if someone asks for that to be done. We support families in their efforts to select materials that are appropriate for their children. Professional licensure does benefit Georgians by ensuring that their libraries, regardless of location anywhere in the state, are responsibly led by trained information professionals. As in many other professions, certification makes Georgia a destination for library professionals and helps us to maintain the highest standards in library service. The library and information science education that was just discussed is the technical knowledge needed to properly direct and manage a complex organization. The continuing education requirement for that certification is not in any way approved by ALA. As a matter of fact, my agency, the Georgia Public Library Service, approves all continuing education requirements to maintain a librarian's license. The state's considerable investment in public libraries is protected when trained and experienced professionals are managing the budgets, staffing, facilities, and collections of our libraries. I would love to offer myself as a resource, and I would be happy to work with you to find a solution that addresses your concerns with ALA while maintaining the highest standards for Georgia's libraries.
Thank you very much. I have a couple of questions and then we've got a question. Your organization, the Georgia Public Library Services, who do you respond to? Who's above you as far as organizational?
The Chancellor of the University System of Georgia.
Okay, Chancellor Purdue then would be the
Correct.
one. Okay,
Correct.
okay.
Mhm.
You've got a good man there from that standpoint in doing that. And then as I understand it, y'all are responsible for all continuing education as well. Am I correct?
We are responsible for approving what counts as continuing education. In order to maintain a license, librarians have to do 10 hours of continuing education every 2 years because we renew every other year. So we provide a lot of it. If another speaker is brought in by an individual system to help train their libraries, they let us know and we make the decision as to whether that's an appropriate continuing education.
Does your organization have any power over, for instance, colleges, things of that nature, and their libraries?
My role as Vice Chancellor for Libraries and Archives, I do oversee Galileo, which is the electronic library that's shared by the university system, the automation network that is used in the libraries. I'm also oversee the Georgia Archives. My particular organization focuses on the public library, but my role spans all of those.
Okay, thank you. Senator Robertson?
Yes, ma'am. And quick thing, you said recent statements by the LA. These statements have actually gone back into the late 60s and early 70s, some of the things. So not so recent. But did I hear you correctly that the Georgia Public Library Service is not, y'all don't have an affiliation with ALA?
We are
Is that
not a
correct?
member. That's
Okay,
correct.
very good. And you said the continuing education is 10 hours every 2 years?
Correct.
Okay. I thought it would be more with the work that they do at the library. So who makes the determination who the accreditation body would be at Valdosta State for their master's program?
As the former speaker mentioned, the ALA is the only body that accredits degree programs in library and information science. Now, that is separate from the certification process. The certification process, of course, is with the Secretary of State's office. There's a board of 6 individuals. I'm one of those who sit on that board and grant those licenses.
So when Valdosta set up their program,
Mhm.
who determined, and I understand you're saying they're the only one right now.
Mhm.
Where was the decision made that the ALA would be brought in to manage the accreditation? Was that decision made at VSU or was that made at the chancellor's office?
I was not involved at that time. I would assume that was made at VSU because every master's in library science program in America pretty much is accredited by ALA. So that was just the standard in order that their graduates would have that credential so that
Right.
they could get those jobs.
Okay, thank you.
Watson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just want to ask the same question to you. Do you know what other states are doing with this issue when it comes to ALA? I know the author mentioned some states were not participating in this, but still, I guess, had accreditation. So what are,
So that's a great question. Those states have disaffiliated from ALA, which basically means that the agency, similar to my agency, has dropped their membership. But they don't have any legislation currently dealing with ALA, and their accreditation, their library schools are still accredited by ALA. No one has dropped that accreditation at this time.
Senator Islam?
Hi,
All
so
right. There you go.
my question was, I want to know if you all hire people with ALA certification at the state library system.
We do. All of our people who are in librarian roles are graduates of an ALA accredited master's program and are certified by the state of Georgia.
Okay. And this legislation would do away with the certification of librarians. So is it of your belief that the certification helps librarians and is something that we need in the state of Georgia?
I do really believe that the certification strengthens our libraries because it ensures that every library system across the state is managed and directed by an experienced and well-trained librarian so that it's a level playing field. We're not saying that some districts, can have someone who is not necessarily trained to run their library.
Okay. And I've received like over 40 emails and phone calls from librarians from all across Georgia, and they're all unified in being against this legislation. I've actually not received any emails or calls in support of it because there's a fear that doing away with the certification would deprofessionalize being a librarian.
I've gotten exactly those calls as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
There you go.
Do you have any idea how this would affect the library workforce at all? If we would pass this bill, like what the effect would be?
I do believe that there are some fears that being unable to participate in professional development and professional associations would maybe encourage people to go to another state. If we don't have an accredited library school program, a lot of the people who go to Valdosta State are already working full-time in libraries and are hoping to receive that credential so that they can progress in their careers. Eliminating that would mean they would have to go out of state, pay out of state tuition, and then maybe stay out of state. So we are concerned with retention if we don't have certification of librarians.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Walker. We appreciate that. We have, let's see, Chelsea Thompson, Frontline. Oh, Chelsea, how are you doing?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chelsea Thompson, our general counsel, was unable to remain for this portion, so I am here in her stead. My name is Taylor Hawkins. I'm Director of Advocacy for Frontline Policy Council, and we are appreciative of the chairman's work to bring this bill and appreciative of the time to speak about it before members of the Government Oversight Committee. So just wanted to talk about a few things that have been mentioned and try to push a few facts your way to highlight the reasons that we are behind this piece of legislation and have worked on it. Libraries should be public spaces that promote information literacy and learning for local communities and a place of political neutrality. And our concern is that the American Library Association has proven clearly and over decades that it is not that organization. It is not an organization of political neutrality. Its current president, her most cited work is a piece called Queering the Catalog, where she discusses a strategy for queer library politics, directly injecting politics into the library. She talks about the fact that libraries should be places of socialist organizing. And I dare say if any poll of Georgians would not show a preponderance of Georgians that agree with socialist policies, nor do they think that a publicly funded institution is the place to push those. The ALA gave an award in 2020 to a book ostensibly for 12 to 16-year-olds that featured oral sex, masturbation, and other forms of what I would consider to be obscenity, and I believe many members of the public would as well. Again, we are actually in favor of finding a loophole, so to speak, an extension, if you will, for Valdosta to just figure out that scenario maybe for a couple of years. We'd be in favor of that to avoid jeopardizing those in the program at the moment. But I do think, to Senator Robertson's point, this is an organization that cannot be trusted with influence over public libraries in the state of Georgia, or with influence over the ongoing training of librarians for our state. The quotes that I just mentioned a minute ago, and I have a ream of those. We provided a one-pager with some more of those, where she also described individuals who combat their position on book bans. She called them Christofascists and Nazis. I believe an individual that does that in a training lecture for public librarians from public institutions funded by taxpayer dollars has displayed that they are untrustworthy and not unable to be trusted, sir, with the position that they have as a state-sponsored entity, essentially, if you will, given these privileges. And so it's our organization's strong position that we pass this piece of legislation, that we separate Georgia's librarians from the influence of the ALA. We look forward to potentially the setup of future organizations. I'm aware of at least 2 right now that are working on setting up an accreditation program nationwide and working on providing the same services that the American Library Association does. Those are not up and running yet, Senator, but Mr. Chairman, rather, but with the increase in a spotlight on what has gone on with the ALA for the last few decades, and with the increase in states that have left the ALA completely and divested their state. There have been 8 to date, and there are more than 10 states prior to that did not have this accreditation. I think it's clear that there will be other options that will spring up that will be more in line with the values of Georgians. And again, I want to restate the fact that this does not even prohibit a member of a local community from having a discussion about what should be on the shelves. If they would like to bring things they feel like are more reflective of their viewpoint to local libraries, that is perfectly acceptable. This bill does not contemplate affecting that. What it does contemplate affecting is whether or not a state sponsorship, again, whether or not a taxpayer-funded platform should be given to an organization whose radical politics do not line up with the majority of Georgians. And so that is why our organization fully supports this. I stand open for any questions and would urge this committee to pass this piece of legislation at the appropriate time.
Thank you. Very good job. No questions, and we'll, whoops.
Hello? Hi, I wanted to ask, did you ever go to the public library when you were young?
Yes, ma'am, quite often.
Okay. Did you ever feel like you were afraid of becoming radicalized when you were at the library?
Well, all of my library visits as a child were with a parent, and I'm grateful for a strong set of parents who were very careful about what I was exposed to as a child. That is unfortunately not always the case, but regardless of my personal perspective, Senator, I would say that, again, this doesn't prohibit a local community from having a discussion about what's appropriate to have on the shelves or not. This is more contemplating if taxpayer dollars should go to fund a professional standards organization that should theoretically be one of political neutrality, but has veered off into, I would say, far left politics.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you, sir. Appreciate
Thank you,
that.
Mr. Chairman.
We have next Mike Griffin from Georgia Baptist. Face we see every now and then.
Yep. My 17th year you see it, I guess, but I
Don't
don't know
look
if
that
you're
old.
17,
Okay.
but anyway, my name is Mike Griffin. I'm the public affairs representative with the Georgia Baptist Mission Board, and we do support Senator Walker's legislation. We support the information that you just heard from Frontline Policy Council. We agree with them. And one of the areas that I work with, in addition to public affairs with the Georgia Baptist Mission Board, is the area of child protection policy and those types of issues in our churches. And, we do represent, in 2020, the census showed that there were 1.5 million Southern Baptists in the state of Georgia, which we're affiliated with, and almost 3,400 churches. And we passed a number of resolutions dealing with issues related to obscenity and children and child protection, all those kinds of issues. And so that's giving you like a 40,000-foot view. That's why we see this as being something that's very needed in our state. I was on WABE last year, an interview dealing with gender dysphoria, and I shared with them that we felt like much of these issues, and there's much more than just that I just mentioned by way of subject, but a lot of that is being culturally driven. And that, even from a federal standpoint, we understand that pornography or obscenity is not to be available to minors and those types of things. And there's also mental health issues related to children that is made worse by being exposed to this kind of information at an early age. And even though I don't agree with a lot of things in the LGBT community. I love them. And I mean, I'm friends and we may disagree on certain things, but I think we all should agree that a lot of those decisions need to be made as adults, even transitions, all that kind of stuff. But we do think we need to protect our children till they get to a certain age. And again, the indoctrination versus education is a lot different these days. And we've got to be careful of that. And so we do support this legislation. And again, it's not just trying to rescue those that are drowning in the stream. I think we do need to go up sometimes and find out where they're falling in at. And I think these are some of the things that are advocating some of the negative impacts on our children. And I think we can all disagree philosophically and doctrinally on a lot of things, but we should all agree in the protection of these children. And again, the rights of the parents, do not exceed public health and safety issues when it comes to children either. So I do think that these are kind of things that we do need to put in place to help protect our children.
Okay. Thank you. We appreciate that. Okay. Okay.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
Chairman.
we
We do
appreciate
encourage the committee's favorable support and working with Senator Walker on any changes on this.
Thank you. I believe Senator Walker has brought a bill that is needed, but needs maybe a little bit of work on that. That's why we were doing a hearing only. And I appreciate everybody's input on that. And you will be back to see us. We have one Senator number 3.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion, do not pass.
We are hearing only right now, so he will come back. Today was really just to hear the information, and so there's no voting on this bill today. Okay. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Senator Walker. Look forward to talking to you. Okay. Next bill. What's it? Next bill is you want me to go with mine or what? I've got one guy waiting in the waiting. And I don't think I'll be that long if you don't mind, Senator Walker. Appreciate it. Okay, separation. All right, if you will, we're going to be dealing with SB 381, which is LC 472731, and dealing with the issues of our government and how we deal with government. How do we know when government's successful? This is something that I had worked on previously. I don't know about you, but I was on the phone the other night with Delta Airlines, and after I got through, they asked me to take a survey to know whether their service was good. If you call Chick-fil-A home office, you get that. And many of the other places that are out there do surveys. But here's a question for, I think, our audience and for our panel is, how do we know when government is successful or unsuccessful? How many of you senators have gotten calls from constituents and you're spending your time helping? And what this basically is going to require, it requires each office of the executive branch agencies and the head, so those appointed by the governor, each office of Secretary of State, the Commissioner of Labor, and the Commissioner of Insurance. Upon the conclusion of the call, the person on the other end has the option of a survey. And the survey could be either verbal or they can input it by their phone, a yes or no, if you will. And there are 4 questions that will be asked. One is, the person to whom you were speaking courteous? I think that's important. I believe that I run a business, and so that's a part that we'd be looking at. The second question is, did the person with whom you spoke resolve the issue that was the subject of your call? Were they successful at what went on? Number 3, if you were an employer in the private sector, would you hire the person with whom you spoke to work for you? And then the last one would be, approximately how long did you have to wait on the phone to talk to a person? And that we are talking to Ledge Council on. It could be automated versus the user having to put that in. I was on the phone the other day to a state agency myself, did not recognize myself as a senator or any part of the government. And I was on the phone for over 30 minutes before I ever talked to a live person. So I think that's something that we need to look at. And that's what this bill is really about, is government accountability. And what would happen is that each agency would post at their website, and then we would also get a report at the each year annually to know how a agency is doing or how their scores are being there. I was at the Atlanta airport the other day. I walked into the bathroom and walked out, and here's a smiley face on one side, a frown on the other, and an in-between. I think this is that type of thing is good for government and good to have accountability from that standpoint. And I think it can be automated. It can be very easy, but it's a way to know whether we're doing our job or not doing our job. And with that, any questions from the committee members or any comments? Okay.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Harold.
I think there's technology that allows a business to collect data on how many abandoned calls.
Mhm.
So for instance, if somebody's calling and they don't get an answer, how about including that on the report of how many abandoned calls
Okay.
there are? Because I do think we have a problem in state government, particularly when things get a little overwhelming, like with the Medicaid redetermination. I've gotten a lot of complaints that people call and nobody answers the phone, so they have to hang up. So how about adding a report for abandoned calls?
Abandoned calls. Okay. I mean, I can see that as far as that. Our help from Legislative Council, you can make that happen, can you not? Okay, so if we could say, hold that as a, we'll use that as an amendment to the bill, but I like that. I think that's right. People just hang up because they get frustrated. And how many calls do we lose like that? Okay.
I'd like to know that.
Okay, very, very good. Okay, let's see. We've got number 4, which is, nope, we got from 4 to 2. Okay, 2. Oh, okay, 4. Okay.
Something like that, yeah. Just every time people, I'm sorry. Yeah, you know, we have a lot of time, you say people call, they say we never get answered, you know, hang up. So that was my
Okay.
concern to us to
Okay.
figure out that too.
Okay, on abandoned calls, we're great and agree. Okay. Anybody else know it? We've got on the line. Oops.
So what happened, like, we're gonna do the surveys and we're gonna get input. What will happen after, like, if a certain department gets so many bad surveys, what happens to that agency? What are we going to do?
You and I come back at them. I mean, what I see is this is an accountability. When I say this, is that I run a business. I want to know what's going on with my business, how many drop calls, there are, how long someone had to wait on hold. The state agency I was on hold was over 30 minutes. Luckily, I could sit at my desk and continue to work. So what we'll do is this gives us a matrix by which we can measure what's going on. And I think just the matrix alone will help us. But then I think that's something else for us to look at, is that we can go to the heads of these departments and be able to at least have a conversation that you're having half of your calls drop off or your people are having to stay on hold for 30 minutes. Those are things I think we need to be able to address, and I think we can address, but this at least brings the data to light that we've not had before.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Let's see, number 13.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think this is a wonderful piece of legislation. Would you be opposed to having an amendment in there that any legislator can have access to the data upon request? Because I don't see anything in here. I mean, we've got the data, but I don't want an executive agency to withhold that data. I want to make it clear in the law that any legislator shall request that data and receive it upon request.
We will take that, if you'll hold that at the end, because we've got drop calls and we'll those two, if Ledge Council will be prepare those for us, those two, I think are good observations and good adds. We have on Zoom, Jordan C. He is the Vice President of Qualtrics. They are a professional corporation that does, I believe, Home Depot and some other companies. And he's just going to give us a little bit of his part. There he is with us. We have you up on the screen. Thank you for being patient and join us, Jordan. And we'll give you the floor for a few minutes to tell us about how this helps business do a good job, and we want government to do a good job.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Chairman. Chairman Harmon, the members of the Senate Government Oversight Committee, thank you for the opportunity to support SB 381, the Assuring Quality in Government Act. And my name is Jordan C. I'm the head of Government Affairs and Public Policy here at Qualtrics. As the global leader in experience management, the software that we produce allows corporations, universities, K through 12 school systems and government organizations alike to quickly identify and resolve points of friction across all digital and human touch points within their business so that they can retain the best customers and their best employees. In Qualtrics experience, the legacy customer experience programs that we see across state and federal governments tend to rely on limited feedback from only a handful of their citizens, usually directly after a poor interaction or a transaction, and is only focused primarily on solving that one-to-one level issue. This legislation takes that first step and moves the state beyond that transactional engagement and takes the step in creating public policy that states the government is about listening to everybody, all its customers, right? Giving agencies a detailed understanding of the individual's concerns, and then using that information to take the right actions to hopefully exceed citizen expectation. Where traditional customer experience is fairly resource intensive to scale, this legislation actually takes that in mind and begins to move the state of Georgia closer to where the private sector in Georgia already excels. Every touch point government has with its citizens in Georgia is an opportunity to build trust. Customer experience is the public's perception of and overall satisfaction of interactions with the government agency, the product, or the service that the state provides. In this case, the customer is any individual or business or organization that interacts with an agency or program within the state, and either directly through or from state or federally funded programs. For an individual, good customer experience can mean less time in a government office, on the phone, like the chairman spoke about, with the help desk, or more digestible information to support decisions on behalf of its citizens. Collectively, through the lifetime of interacting with different agencies, these moments are pretty powerful to show that Georgians and their government can work together. Improving the public's trust in government happens transaction by transaction. So by understanding your citizens' needs through gathering feedback, conducting research, sharing insights, and testing new approaches that ensure that the state is designing solutions with its citizens in mind. So Senator Harmon, I really appreciate you for taking this opportunity, for letting me testify in support of this bill. And I'd be happy to answer any questions around this legislation.
Am I correct when our conversations that you are currently, your company is handling the state of Utah? Am I correct on that?
Correct. So Qualtrics is a Utah and Seattle-based company, but one of the biggest interactions that we have with state government is with the state of Utah. And so Governor Cox, Spencer Cox, one of his big initiatives really when he took office as governor was really to expand customer experience to all citizens across the state of Utah, really engaging state agencies, ensuring that they are taking the time, they are, in modernizing the way that in which they engage folks. And then I think that Senator Moore asked the question about having a report back to the agency, and that is included in that, right? Is actually having the state agencies roll all of that data up so that the legislature has that data to ensure that they can do something with that. And you talked a little bit earlier too, sir, about the companies in Georgia that we work with. Off the bat, Delta Airlines, Coca-Cola, Aflac, Southern Company, UPS, Home Depot, Chick-fil-A, and even the Atlanta Hawks. So we engage with Georgia companies to help them better understand and work with their customers to have the greatest experience with just not only their customers, but their employees as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. Don't have any remarks, but thank you for stepping in and helping us. Thank you for your patience while we're going through all those other, and hopefully we can get back with you and talk with you a little bit more on this, but thank you for your input. Appreciate it. All right. Senator Moore, just a real quick question. If you'll look at page 2, lines 27 and 28, is that it says that shall make the results of such satisfaction surveys available on its public website. So what we were going to do is each one of them would have a website that would have part of their website would be customer satisfaction scores, so that all of this should be available. And I think this is really the way to do it. It's on the website. You know what's going on. So that's the part that you would be able to go to their website and see that. Okay. That's satisfactory there. Okay. Now, Your number 6, Miss Sally.
Yes.
Senator Sally, okay.
Senator Sally, yes. Yes, Mr. Chairman, I move that we amend Senate Bill 381 LC 472731 by inserting between line 25 and 26, labeling B, each such office shall maintain a record of how many persons discontinued their calls prior to speaking with a representative of the office, and then striking the next section, which is B, and making it C.
All right, okay, thank you. Okay. Any discussion on that? No? Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Okay. Senator Moore, 13, yes, sir.
Lines 26, 27. Is this for all executive agencies or just the Secretary of State, Commissioner of Labor, and Commissioner of Insurance? So like the Department of Driver Services, or there's a lot of executive agencies. Are they all included or just the ones listed?
I'm gonna go back to Ledge Council. Can you help us there, sir? Thank you. Each executive branch agencies.
So it includes each executive branch agency plus the Secretary of State's office, the Commissioner of Labor, Commissioner of Insurance. So they're all covered.
They're all covered in that, he's saying. Okay. Okay. So we have an amendment, I'm gonna say, from Senator Harrell. And what? I'm sorry, Senator Sally. Okay. 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 Do we have a motion on her amendment to the bill? Yep.
Don't we need a motion on the bill?
Motion on the original bill,
Yes, sir.
and then we'll do that. Okay,
Yes.
sorry about that. Okay,
And I'll make that.
you'll make that motion. Thank you, Senator Roberts, and we got a second from Senator Moore. Okay. Now discussion on the original bill. No more discussion anymore. Okay. Yes, sir.
I just want to, I know we have a company that this gentleman just talked about. Do you have any fiscal note? I know as a chairman, what are you going to cost any money in the long run? I just want to see if we can, before, I'm going to vote for it,
Right,
I
right.
just want to go to the floor. I'm just wondering, how much it might cost,
We have not gotten a cost. I will say this, the cost is really not that bad, at least from my standpoint. I think it's a product of operations, just in your general operations. We put that in the business, but I will make sure we have that before we get on the floor with it. Okay.
That's good. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Okay. We've got a first or second discussion. We have an amendment from Senator Harrell. Do we have a motion on her amendment? Got second? Got Senator Robertson. Okay. And who got this Islam? Who's second? Oh, okay. Senator Merrick. Okay, sorry about that. Okay. Okay. Any further discussion? What is the will of the committee? Motion do pass. Second, have a second. Okay. No more discussion. All in favor, raise your hand. You're unanimous. All right, we're together on that. All right, Senator Walker, we're coming down to the end. We've saved the best for last.
Oh,
Him again. Yeah, no.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I bring you House Bill 269, LC 472150. Representative Blackman and I had a constituent that serves on a workforce development board that requested this legislation, and all it does is allow them to meet using Zoom or oh my goodness. Local Workforce Development Board. By teleconference. They can meet by teleconference.
And this bill passed out last year by us. I believe it was unanimous and was left on the table and was recommitted back here as all this really
Yes, sir.
is what I remember from that standpoint. Okay. Very good. Very good. All right. Any questions? Yes, sir. Oh. You're ready to go then. Okay. 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 We have a motion to pass. We have a second. Thank you for a second. We got seconds. Any discussion any further? Okay. No discussion. Okay. All in favor, raise your hand. All right. We have unanimous.
Thank you.
You're
Mr.
ready to go, Senator Walker.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, yeah. And we'll dismiss with our mallet. Thank y'all so much.